What is up, everybody, and welcome to the Thursday night edition of the Border City Kids Live podcast. Sorry, I was having some technical difficulties there, but we're back. The feed is up and running. I think we should be good overall here to go. I just wanted to welcome everyone tonight. Last week on Thursday, we covered Hurricane Helene, which was a Category 4 hurricane which slammed into Florida and really slowed down and took its time over the Carolinas, and it just dumped tons and tons of rain, causing massive flooding, which caused most of the damage there last year in Florida through Georgia and the Carolinas. This week, we are covering the F5 tornado in Jarrell, Texas. This took place 28 years ago in 1997. So if you are just joining me, thanks for being here. First off, I appreciate that. Please hit the subscribe, the like button. If you'd like, leave a comment or leave even a suggestion on a topic that you would like me to cover in an upcoming episode, because usually I don't mind doing them right away. I love doing what I'm doing. First off, as you can see, the studio has really come together here. We have really improved things since the start of this podcast, and if there's anything I encourage you guys to do, it's if you're interested in any topic at all, even if you're not getting a huge audience to start, and I know I'm not, but if it's something you really enjoy doing, I suggest that you go out and do it, because there's always an audience that's willing to listen to what you have to say. There's tons of topics to cover, and there's always an audience for anything out there. So if you are into any, if you like talking to people about what you're really interested in, and maybe you want to go further with it, start your own podcast. It's a little bit of work to do, but honestly, from where I've started, I was just doing an audio only podcast to start, and now I'm going live with it. I have a studio set up, and I feel like it's really coming together. I got episodes out every Friday, and yes, it does take time to do, but my suggestion is to be as efficient as you can. So try not to take all your time up doing this, but always look for one thing you can improve on every video, and honestly, just be consistent and keep posting. So here's my YouTube channel, and like I said, I posted it in the link, or in the chat. Sorry, I posted the link in the chat. It's the Border City Kids page if you'd like to go check it out. I got tons of videos, so well, not tons. I got videos, because I am relatively new, on hurricanes, tsunamis, tornadoes, etc. That if you'd like to check them out, they're kind of more of a storytelling type style. Every Thursday night, I'm hopping on here and I'm doing more of a Q&A or information session. So if you are here, I appreciate you being here. So tonight we are covering the Jarrell, Texas tornado of 1997, 28 years ago. And I'm just going to dive right into this. This is an interesting slide behind me. As you can see, and I know it's just the top left shows a thin tornado, but if you look at the picture on the right, it's an interesting caption underneath, and it says "Dead Man Walking." So if you don't, and I looked at this first and I'm like, what's this talking about? If you look into that funnel of the tornado, you can kind of see a silhouette that almost looks like there is a person walking in the actual main funnel. And the reason that is because the main vortex of that tornado has split into two, and it gives off that vibe that there is almost someone walking inside the funnel, which is why they call this the Dead Man Walking tornado. If you actually search this up on Google, you will get a result that comes up with the 1997 Jarrell, Texas tornado. This was an F5 tornado. It was a relatively short tornado, but if you look at the pictures from before and after, you can see the total devastation that was done by this tornado in such a short period of time. And you can also tell that it must have had a very high wind speed with it to do the damage that it did. So let's get into it tonight. Once again, thanks for being here. I'm just going to go through my slideshow just to show some of the damage that was done by this tornado. And you could tell this isn't a tornado to be taken lightly. The damage speaks for itself in this picture here. Just totally devastated. Neighborhoods taken down, the whole foundations of every house completely gone. just because the wind speed hit a top maximum wind speed of about 260 miles per hour, which is incredible. I can't even imagine being in the middle of that. So let's go into this here. So on May 27th, 1997, a monstrous F5 tornado formed under extraordinary conditions and brought unimaginable destruction to a small community, and one that I've never heard of before I actually did some research to find out about this, because I did want to cover a tornado that was not relatively new, but something more historical back in the 90s. So this storm was this tornado was in Jarrell, Texas in 1997. This rewrote the record books. It stunned meteorologists and forever changed the quiet Texas town of Jarrell, Texas. So what we're going to look at during this presentation here is the town where it hit. So the town of Jarrell itself before the storm, the weather setup that led to the actual outbreak of the storm, and when disaster struck in Jarrell, what actually happened, and how people in Jarrell, Texas came together to show resilience and work together to overcome the battles of what was taken from them, whether it's lives or property or friendship or anything like that was done with the storm. So let's have a look at, and this picture here is just a quick little shot of the damage. So you could see the actual foundations of the homes. And the reason this would be, this was a slow moving tornado, an F5 tornado that was just sitting in this neighborhood in Jarrell, Texas. And with the wind speed of 260 miles per hour, it just tore through this community and wiped everything out. So there's nothing even left, which is pretty incredible. Okay, so let's go into the actual town of Jarrell itself. Let's see if I can get you a better picture here of. Okay, I'm just going to leave that one up. That one's pretty powerful right there. That's a good angle shot showing you the damage and destruction of the homes. Okay, so to understand this tragedy, we need to begin with life before the storm. Jarrell in 1997 was a very quiet rural town in Williamson County, and that's about 40 miles north of Austin, Texas. It has a very, very small population of about 450 people, and it was the kind of place that you'd wave to every car that passed by, and neighbors helped neighbors, and where time seemed to slow down. So this was a very peaceful, quiet community, and everyone seemed to know everyone, and everyone was willing to lend a helping hand whenever necessary. And that's just what you get with a lot of these small towns, which is awesome to see. The Double Creek Estate subdivision sat on the northern edge of town, and it was a newly developed area with modest brick homes. They had picket fences and wide open fields. Families were building their dreams there. Okay, so this is a very small place, and maybe the population started to grow, especially probably into the 2020s. I'm assuming that we have at least doubled the population, but very small back then. Many who lived in the Double Creek estates had chosen Jarrell for its peaceful small town charm. The sound of crickets at night, because it's obviously small, you don't hear people, there's not much going on. The smell of freshly cut grass and the occasional thunderstorm rolled through Jarrell, Texas. And that was the rhythm of life in Texas. Okay, in this community, that was kind of what they got used to. Thunderstorms in the summer, and it was kind of just a repeating pattern. You get your good days, and then once again, you get more thunderstorms. But on May 27th, 1997, the peace would shatter altogether. The day of May 27th, 1997 began like any other late spring day in Texas. Now let's load up the radar, because this is what the radar was showing May 27th, 1997. And what you can see is a main cell of a thunderstorm. And I just put an arrow on top because this was a cell that went north to south. And you can see down here, this is the little tiny town of Jarrell. Okay, and we can see this is a very strong cell, and it's very small, but usually when you get those little tiny cells like that break up, you might see some rotation within, and this one was carrying a tornado. So let's go back into it. It was a nice spring day, just kind of like any other day in Texas. It was warm and humid, a little unsettled, but in the upper atmosphere, things were changing rapidly. The meteorologists had already been tracking this slow-moving cold front. So there was a cold front coming, I believe, I think it was from Canada, and there was also a push of very humid air from the Gulf of Mexico, and these two kind of combined, and this led into this storm that we see here. So the temperatures were soaring into the 90s, which is pretty high for May standards, and the dew points were in the 70s. So this is a dangerous combination that created extreme instability in the atmosphere. Okay, and this is kind of leading up to our storm of the day. So let's go into this. By early afternoon, a cluster of powerful supercell thunderstorms began to form west of Austin. These storms would be soon unleashed, and it's one of the most violent tornado outbreaks Central Texas has ever seen. Okay, so on the day of May 27th, 1997, around 3:30 p.m., one of those supercells produced a tornado southwest of Jarrell, and it began a narrow rope funnel twisting across open fields. And within minutes, it dramatically intensified. The meteorologists were watching their radar images and saw something very, very unusual. The storm wasn't moving northeast, and this is kind of what I was getting into with this radar image behind me. Most times you usually see like a west to east type flow, and instead this one was drifting southwest. So we're starting northeast and it's coming down southwest. And let me just move this picture over here so you can actually see. Maybe that's actually a better visual right there. Okay, so we see Jarrell is right here. Okay, so we got the supercell thunderstorm, and it's heading southwest, and we see the little town of Jarrell here. Okay, that's a little bit better. And this is not the usual formation. We do not see storms move this way. It is a rare and deadly setup caused by a boundary collision of air masses. So we had that cold front, and we had the mild, warm, humid air coming up from the Gulf of Mexico. Okay, and as it approached Jarrell, the tornado rapidly grew in width. So it started out, and if I go back here to this slide, you can see that this storm started out as a very thin tornado, as most usually do, and eventually turned into this very wide tornado and split vortexes into what's called a dead man walking tornado, which is really interesting to see. And if you're here, thank you once again. You can see this image in the top right here. You can see the legs easily defined here of this tornado, and it's a very rare thing to happen. Okay, so let's go back here, and this just shows the cold frontal boundary coming through, and we also have from the south the warm humid air from the Gulf of Mexico. Okay, on this day there were 10 tornadoes tracked across the Dallas-Fort Worth region, and they were all spawned by the same supercell thunderstorm. So the little tiny cell, this right here, caused all 10 tornadoes, which is pretty incredible because the actual size of this cell is not too big, but this is what it looks like. And May in the States, within Oklahoma, in Texas, this is like their main time for tornadoes. Now you'll get tornadoes all through summer, but May is usually that month where you see the most tornadoes. So this is a pretty interesting setup here, a tiny supercell causing 10 tornadoes. Okay, so let's go. And I'm just going to leave this picture up here because this is the memorial setup, for Jarrell, Texas, on that day where all these lives were lost, and it's pretty sad. I believe it was 27 people. Let's go here. So as it approached Jarrell, the tornado rapidly grew in width and power, transforming into a massive F5 wedge tornado with estimated winds exceeding 260 miles per hour. So this is a very, very strong tornado, relentless, just coming through and doing the damage. And unfortunately, Jarrell, Texas became the victims on that day. Around 3:40 p.m., the tornado reached the outskirts of Jarrell and slammed directly into Double Creek Estates, okay, which is kind of, if I go back here, I would assume this is part of the Double Creek Estates right here. And you can see there is a nice, I don't know if this is the track of the tornado right here, but with the 260 mile per hour winds just sitting there, obviously it's going to cause tons and tons of damage. What made this tornado especially catastrophic, okay, kind of like I just said here, was its slow movement, creeping at only 8 miles per hour. So over an hour, it would move 8 miles. So that means it is moving super slow. So that means it's very concentrated on one area. And that's why you see 260 mile per hour winds sitting in one location it's going to wipe out everything that's in sight. Unfortunately for the people that live there, I hope they were able to take cover. That meant it stayed over each home longer than usual, grinding everything beneath it into the ground. Witnesses described the sound as 1,000 freight trains, a deep, unrelenting roar that seemed to shake the earth. When it passed, the devastation was absolute. Homes were swept entirely off their foundations, as you can see in the picture behind me. Concrete slabs were totally wiped clean. Asphalt roads were peeled from the ground. It honestly, it looks like a dirt road from what I can see in this picture. So the roads were just gone. It was complete obliteration. In a matter of minutes, 27 people were killed, and it's awful to hear about anyone that's any lives that were taken during this. 28 years ago, I assume the setup was much different when it comes to storm warnings, tornado warnings, any type of warning system that's in a very small town like this. It's very unfortunate to hear that. We pray for those families that were affected. Among them were parents, children, and grandparents. Some were found together, which is super sad, holding one another in their final moments as they knew the tornado was approaching and couldn't find shelter in time. It was one of the most violent displays of nature's power ever recorded. So once again, super sad. Unfortunately, we remember the families affected. Okay, so let's go into, and this memorial setup right here has all the names. Now I'm not sure if we can actually see all the names on here. If you can't see, I would want you to check into our episode that comes out at noon tomorrow Eastern time to check out some of the names that were affected. There should be 27 on there. And it says, this memorial is dedicated in loving memory to those who lost their lives in the Jarrell, Texas tornadoes. May 7th. So there were 2 tornadoes. So there's probably maybe a little bit more than 27 names. So they've been hit by 2 main tornadoes at this time. May 17th, 1989, and May 27th, 1997. And the interesting fact on that is they're both in May. And like I said, May is tornado season in the States, in the USA. It's that springtime when you're seeing storms develop with cold fronts still coming across, and you're seeing a lot of humid, warm air come from the Gulf of Mexico. So very unfortunate for these families, but we do not forget them. And here's just a look at some of the damage that was done. This is kind of a closer up picture to the foundation. You can see it totally ripped off from here. I think we can see almost the basement right here where families were hiding. And even if you were in the basement, unfortunately, you can see that even that's not even safe because of the concentrated power that this tornado had on this community. With its slow speed, it was able to sit over these houses, totally destroy them, and suck whatever was in those houses in the basement right out of them. And it's just awful to see, because usually we're always saying when you find shelter, please find like a low area away from windows, just kind of hidden away from everything. And even if you did in this situation, it seems that you weren't safe, unfortunately. And like I said, we will remember the victims here. So this is just a little news broadcast, a picture that I found where you can see, and I think I've showed this picture already, but you can see just the damage and devastation done, and you can look at the people that are there to help, and that comes with the story of rebuilding and resilience. When the first responders arrived, they couldn't even recognize where the neighborhood had been in the first place. Everything familiar, from the houses, the mailboxes, and the trees, were gone. The storm had turned the area into an open field of debris, with only faint outlines marking where the streets once ran. And like I said, this looks like a total dirt path road, and it was a paved road before, which is super sad. So you can see the power and devastation of this tornado. Rescue teams from surrounding towns rushed in to help, but there was little left to rescue because what was done was done. You can see there what are they supposed to rescue here when everything is gone and it's there's nothing left. So the focus shifted to recovery, and the community was in total and utter shock over this. Nearby churches had opened their doors to families who had lost everything: houses, family, food. Volunteers brought food, water, and supplies, and the Red Cross arrived to assist survivors who had nowhere to go. The meteorologists and disaster teams from across the country came to study what exactly had happened here, because this is something they haven't seen before, especially a supercell thunderstorm heading from northeast to southwest, which is a very interesting setup, as well as how slow it was moving, 8 miles per hour, and looking at the devastation it caused. And it was also a violent F5 tornado, and it leveled an entire subdivision in just minutes. So I'm going to go over the actual statistics, just straight up statistics from the storm. Looking at the date, it was May 27th, 1997. The location was Jarrell, Texas, which is in Williamson County in Texas. The rating on the Fujita scale was an F5. The maximum sustained winds was over 260 miles per hour, which is incredible. The width of the path width was 3/4 of a mile, and the length, it ran for about 7.6 miles. So this wasn't the longest tornado by any means, but it was very, very concentrated on the path that it took. The total fatalities were 27, and the injuries, dozens of people were injured by the storm. The number of homes destroyed was over 40, completely leveled in Double Creek Estates. And I'm just going to assume that this picture is from the Double Creek Estates, okay? And look at this picture here, and look how wide it is, and it doesn't even matter. And I want to say this is the path right through this field here that it took, maybe this diagonal path. And I don't know if this is, I don't think these would be tire marks, but you can almost see like it kind of just came back. It didn't really know where to go. But any houses right here took on 260 mile per hour winds. And if you were hiding or trying to stay away from the tornado in this case, it wasn't going to be a good outcome for you, unfortunately. But just total devastation. And even this house over here, which was, visually it looks decently far from the actual path, it's still gone. There's nothing left. So it's just awful to see what happened. Okay, and this is just another picture of the devastation back in Jarrell, Texas, in 1997. Unfortunately, you can just see the shock and horror on this guy's face here, as I assume that he has lost just about everything. Very sad. I did want to look at this picture here. This is from the memorial in Jarrell, Texas, and this just kind of summarizes how Jarrell, Texas became an actual, how it got the name Jarrell, Texas in the first place. During the 1900s, plans were made for the construction of the Bartlett and Western Railway. So they put a railway through, and it passed daily through Bartlett. Temple Real Estate Temple Real Estate developer Orlando Jarrell, so I assume that's where they're getting the name from, through a portion of property that he leased rather than through the established town of Cornhill, situated 2 miles to the south. So Jarrell partnered with E.C. Haber of Bartlett, who provided the capital to purchase the property. Jarrell then, it's hard to see these small letters here, platted a town site and began to sell lots in December of 1909. So I assume Jarrell kind of started up in 1909, and by 1911, when the railroad finally arrived in Jarrell, most of the residents of Cornhill had moved to the new town. So this is when it more so developed in 1911. In fact, between 20 and 25 structures were also moved from Cornhill. So people moved from Cornhill to Jarrell on that day. Now I want to get just to the bottom of this because this probably just goes into more detail on that. And I want to focus more on the tornado itself. Jarrell made national news headlines when a May 27th, 1997 tornado killed 27 residents and injured many others. The town of Jarrell carried on, incorporated in 2001, and since experienced rapid population growth. So I'm kind of curious to see what the population is today, but I'm going to if you guys are interested in that, you can write in the chat what the population is today. And this is just one of the victims of the tornado that day. You can see these people were born in 1961 and 1980, and the date of death, unfortunately, was May 27th, 1997. So we pray for these families and these people who lost their lives that day. This is the actual Jarrell Memorial Park, and the reason I have this circled here is because this is the little gravestone that has all the names of the victims, and I think it said from 2 separate tornadoes, but all the names are on there. And this is also, this part right here is the little sign that had the kind of historical of where Jarrell got its name from, and then had the spiel at the bottom about the tornado of Jarrell in 1997. Okay, and this is a sad picture here. This family was taken by this tornado. Super sad to see. Okay, and I'm just gonna leave it off with that picture while I finish up here. In the years following the disaster, the people of Jarrell worked to rebuild not just their homes, but their hearts. Near the site of the destroyed subdivision, the Jarrell Memorial Park was created to honor the 27 lives lost that day. And I'll just leave that there. Every year on May 27th, residents gather at the park to remember the victims and reflect on the storm that changed their town forever. For those who lived through it, Jarrell is more than a story of loss. It's a story of strength, unity, and remembrance. Parents tell their children about that day, not to instill fear, but to remind them of the importance of awareness, preparation, and compassion for one another. And I would hope through the last 28 years, they have a much stronger weather preparedness system in place, tornado preparedness or tornado warning system in place, so people actually have a little bit more time to find shelter when there's a storm coming through. When it comes to the reflection, let's load up the reflection here. The reflection. The Jarrell tornado stands as a chilling reminder that even small, quiet towns are not immune to nature's fury. Meteorologists learned critical lessons from this event about the behavior of storm boundaries, the unpredictability of backward-moving supercells. And this is a backward-moving supercell because it moved from northeast to southwest, which is something we don't usually see. It's usually southwest to northeast, so it's totally backwards. And we see that the dangers of slow-moving tornadoes can linger over one spot for several minutes. And when it comes to tornadoes that are F5 or even honestly, any type of tornado, when you see them concentrated over one area like this, they can do tons and tons of damage to homes, to lives, to friends, to family, etc. But beyond the science, the human lessons are just important. We're reminded of the value of community, the need for early warning systems to be put in place, and the importance of remembering those who were lost so their stories can continue to teach and inspire the future generations. The people of Jarrell rebuilt their town from the ground up, physically and emotionally, and through the memorial and the shared memories, they've ensured that the legacy of May 27th, 1997 will never fade. So for my closing remarks, what I'll do here first before I give my closing remarks. If you are watching this podcast, and I appreciate if you are, please once again check out my YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/@thebordercitykids. Please check out some of my other storms on there. I got Hurricane Ian, I got Hurricane Andrew, I got Moore 2 more tornado stories to talk about. I got the Joplin tornado to talk about, which is very sad, about how it took place during a graduation and took lives there, and some were involved in the graduation ceremony itself. But please check these out. I do this to keep the victims' stories alive. I think it's important to recognize these people who lived their lives, who gave everything they had to protect others, and their lives were taken away. So, and these communities were stolen from them as well. So this is my YouTube page. Please check it out. Like I said, the link is in the chat, www.youtube.com/@thebordercitykids. Please check it out. Hit the subscribe button, and every Friday you'll get a new episode. And every Thursday night you will get a live episode of kind of like a Q&A or info session on what the Friday episode's about. Now, you can also leave a suggestion in the chat box as well, and I will likely cover that as soon as I can as well. So if you have any natural disaster or something you're interested in, please type it in the chat and I'll get to it very soon. I guarantee that. So tonight's reflection, the story of the Jarrell tornado isn't just about destruction. It's about humanity. It's about how one small Texas town faced unimaginable loss and found strength in unity, compassion, and remembrance. As we continue to study storms like Jarrell, we honor those who lost their lives by striving to better understand the power of nature and to protect future generations. Thank you for joining me tonight as we looked at the 1997 Jarrell, Texas tornado. Stay weather aware, stay prepared, and above all, stay connected to your community, because when nature strikes, it's our humanity that helps us endure. Thanks for joining me. Have a good night. Take care. We'll see you next time. Enjoy the episode tomorrow.